Welcome back to Cayman Conversations. My name is Ralph Lewis, and today is June 30th, and our thoughts and prayers are with the residents of Barbados, St. Vincent, and other Windward Islands as they brace for the onslaught of a powerful Category 3 hurricane Beryl. At 10 a.m. this morning, Beryl was located at 400 miles east of the Windward Islands. It is moving quickly westward over the open waters of the Central Atlantic Ocean and is expected to impact the Windward Islands tomorrow morning, July 1st. According to the Cayman Islands National Weather Service, they're monitoring this Hurricane Beryl. At present, the system poses no immediate threat to the Cayman Islands. However, the forecast cone covers the Cayman Islands. Residents are encouraged to remain vigilant and stay updated with the latest weather developments. As usual, we have two great interviews lined up for you today. During our first conversation, Charlie Kirkconnell, CEO of Cayman Enterprise City, and Caribbean economist and advisor Mala Dukaran discussed the economic impact of CEC on the Cayman Islands. For our second conversation, Honorary Consul to Barbados, Juliet Gooding, shares her thoughts on the discontinuation of Cayman Airways Limited flights to Barbados. Now let's get started. Good afternoon and welcome to Cayman Conversations. Today we have two special guests, Mala Dukaran and Mr. Charlie Kirkconnell. And for all those listeners who are not familiar with those fine folks, we're going to ask Mr. Charlie just to tell us what he does, and then we'll ask Mala the same question afterwards. Good afternoon, folks.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for having me on the show. So I am Charlie Kirkconnell. I'm the CEO at Cayman Enterprise City, and our project is designed to attract knowledge and technology-focused businesses to set up a genuine physical presence here in Cayman. And what that means is to open an office and employ people locally.
Okay, thank you. And Mala, welcome. And give us an idea, what do you do?
Thanks, Ralph. Good afternoon to all of your listeners. So I'm based I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. I'm an economist. I've been a practicing economist for over 20 years in the Caribbean, and I have a special affinity for the Cayman Islands, as you know. I've always said that Cayman Islands is the best run economy in the Caribbean. Of course, you all love me for saying that and others don't. But I also have the distinct privilege of being able to conduct an economic impact assessment for Cayman Enterprise City to independently assess what is the impact they're having on the economy, what is the impact that they're having on the whole, private sector ecosystem, as well as the government's finances in the Cayman Islands. And I think that it's really commendable and exemplary that Charlie and his team do this economic impact assessment, which they're not required to do, but it's good that they do this so that they elevate the level of transparency and disclosure and set an example for other private sector players who don't necessarily do that and don't have reporting requirements, but to demonstrate the impact that they're having on their country. And I quite commend Charlie and his team for doing that. And it's always a pleasure to work with them and do this economic impact assessment every year.
Okay, thank you very much, Mala. And Charlie, why did you find it so important to have this assessment conducted?
Well, I mean, at the heart of it, at the core of what our project is, it's an investment by the Cayman Islands government on behalf of the people of the Cayman Islands in a project designed to create a new economic sector in the Cayman Islands for the purpose of, like I said, economic diversification away from such a heavy reliance on financial services and tourism, the attraction of foreign direct investment, in new business sectors, and then also something that's becoming increasingly important. Was part of the original plan, of course, but has become increasingly significant and important over the last few years is knowledge transfer. So a very important part of what we do is to deliver the great programs that help to facilitate the knowledge transfer. And so, as we want people to understand there is a very significant return for the government and the people of the Cayman Islands on their investment, and showing this in the way that we do. Again, as Marla said, it's an independent report that she prepares. Marla said to us from the very beginning that she's not going to write a marketing piece for us. That's not what she does, and it's going to be warts and all. And we said that's exactly what we're looking for. We want an honest assessment of the of how the program is performing. What is the socioeconomic impact it is delivering, and we want people to know what's happening with their project.
Excellent. All right. Well, Marla, let's jump right into the meat of the report. I read through it. It was very extensive, very well put together. And what did you find?
Thank you. Well, basically, we found, and we've calculated the cumulative impact of around $1 billion US over the 12-year period since inception. And I think that, that sounds like a big enough figure, but I would like to just emphasize that that is probably not the most important figure or the most important impact. I think that the financial impact we can quantify and we can put it there, and it's a nice figure. But I think what's more important than that is, and you may have read something that I've written a few months ago on the Cayman Islands economy and the fact that you're heavily invested, as Charlie just mentioned, in two sectors that have challenges. I mean, every sector's got challenges, but these two sectors mean that the economy of the Cayman Islands is vulnerable, especially when you have a climate crisis, and tourism is heavily dependent, at least in the Cayman context, on the natural environment in the Cayman Islands. We don't have significant natural resources in Cayman. What you then need is you need to diversify into sectors that are more knowledge-based, sectors where people can earn higher incomes, higher wages. And when I say people, the people of the Cayman Islands, citizens and permanent residents. And I think that's the more important impact that Cayman Enterprise City has had and will continue to have in the economy, where you're bringing in sectors that are more knowledge-based, more future-proof, future-driven. So not the mature industries and the mature sectors that we've been relying on for the past few decades. And the amount of training that they do, the amount of knowledge transfer that Charlie spoke about earlier, that to me is the more important impact, because it's really the social impact. We can measure the economic and financial as around $1 billion, but I just want to emphasize that the social impact and the fact that they are, by being an inward investment promotion agency, but not just inward investment promotion for any and every type of business. It's really about those sectors that are more knowledge-based and more future and progressively oriented, that it creates an ecosystem where the future Caymanians and the young Caymanians can find employment and find a career and chart a career path in a much more future-oriented sector, progressive sector, than the traditional financial services and tourism. That to me is the more important impact.
And Marla, that is music to my ears. I arrived here over 40 years ago, and I was a banker, and I was concerned that there's only banking and tourism. And at one point, as we know, banking has changed over the years. And my kids went to university and were wondering, what do we do? What do they do when they come home? And thank God I did degrees in IT. So now they're well established. So I am really now seeing what you're talking about in real life. And it's music to my ears.
With your own children,
Yes, that the other industries that have come around. And I'll get Charles to jump in here and speak about, the same thing that we talk about, the importance of other industries and to the Cayman Islands and how our people are being affected.
Well, I think, there's a few examples that I like to use about, that kind of illustrate on a very personal level the changes and the positiveness of those changes. But I have friends that went away to school, university. The one story that I like to tell is a friend of mine studied engineering at an Ivy League university, and ultimately was when he was and he did work for a little while in California, but ultimately it came down to do I want to live in the U.S. and pursue this career, or do I want to live in Cayman? And what won out eventually was he wanted to come back to Cayman, and where so essentially had to retrain for a new career, and he did, and was very successful in that career. But the point being is that I think the changes that are happening now in Cayman mean that you don't have to make that choice anymore. And the opportunity for us to avoid whether it's brain drain or, put in simple terms, I'd love to see my children come back to Cayman when they're finished with school and live and work here. And, in order to help make that happen, there has to be opportunities that are relevant to them, opportunities that are relevant to their schooling and and basically what they'd like to do with their lives. So I think that is and then I have multiple stories well, I have a story of a friend who didn't come back, and he stayed in California and became a very, very successful graphic designer working on some very not video games that I know anything about, but some of the world's leading video games, but that so he made a different choice, and ultimately we'd love to see to at least position ourselves to retain or to avoid brain drain, basically.
Okay, thank you, Charlie, and that is so important. Marla, switching back to you, can you just give us an idea of some of those fields of business or opportunities that you found in that report relating to CC in the Cayman Islands?
Meaning the opportunities in the different sectors?
Yes.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, that CSC has created in Cayman Islands.
So, first of all, they do a lot of outreach and, skill building, career focused training, and career and community engagement opportunities as it relates to career planning for all the sectors that they're involved in. But you have lots of technology heavy and I mean, Charlie can better outline for you, but basically technology driven sectors, digital innovation sectors, and also there's a heavy emphasis on entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship spans so many different sectors, right? One of the things that struck me the most was you talked about the banking sector, and that this was something that was so heavily Cayman was so heavily invested in over the past few decades, and that has transitioned now where not so much banking, but financial services in general. But financial services and the opportunities in Cayman have switched to, in my understanding, more towards the regulatory space and the compliance space, regulatory compliance and cybersecurity space. And there is that slant as well in the members of Cayman Enterprise City in that they offer these kinds of services. And so you can still service the financial services sector and still be involved in that sector if you want to be as a Caymanian, but in a slightly different way. Instead of being a banker, you can think about the compliance space, which is a growing space, the whole fintech space, and the whole cybersecurity space. I think when you create an ecosystem that coincides and intersects with other ecosystems, of course, you have that much more synergy that you can derive, and I see that happening in the entities that Cayman Enterprise City has been able to attract. And I think that one of the things we identified in the report is you have to look at what sectors are growing globally versus declining. And we did an analysis around sectors that are dying versus sectors that are growth sectors. And the two sectors, financial services and tourism, are roughly dying sectors. But then when you think about the tech and even especially the AI potential in those sectors, it's huge. How many hotels, airlines have you had to call, and when you call them or you're texting with them, you're not texting with a human, you're not talking to a human, you're
That's right.
talking to a bot, right? An AI. And so you have these sectors that traditionally, in the traditional sense I should say, the skill level and the wage level is not where you would want to be. But in those same sectors, you have ways that you can service those sectors from a technology standpoint, like the cybersecurity,
Yes.
like the AI. And that's what I see Cayman Enterprise City bringing the potential of as well, of upskilling and taking the existing sectors in Cayman to a different level. And that's where I think a lot of the opportunities lie, because you already have these sectors there. They are in themselves dominant sectors, but perhaps there is a way by combining the technology of making them that much more competitive and efficient.
Okay, thank you. And behind me, there's a photo of a building. I was shocked when I saw it, Charlie, and and that's the new headquarters, I understand. Can you just tell us where it's located and when it was completed and what happens inside there?
Sure. So it's off Fairbanks Road. So across the street from Triple C School, Agape, the Agape Worship Center, and so you take a left. When you're approaching, l'ambiance on your left.
Right.
That helps to give a picture. We don't have a road name yet. We're still waiting on one to be assigned, but. I think roughly, if you just kind of can imagine the Fairbanks area, that's where we're located. We completed the building in March, and we've been going through the process of opening and preparing for clients, and then starting the process of moving clients in. And that has been a bit of an adventure. It's a new building, and when you move in, that's when you find out what needs to be fixed, or what could be done differently or better or whatever. So we're working through that process right now. But the building is open. There are people conducting special economic zone business from within the building, and we've also moved a number of our events that we used to go out to other kind of public spaces to host, and we've brought some of those events to the building, and we're in the process of creating a very, very vibrant, active, and engaging knowledge and technology focused community, all centered around this, our first building, and then our future buildings as well. So this is the first building. We anticipate that we will be under construction with the second building by the end of the year, and then onwards from there.
Excellent. And also that contributes to the Cayman economy with the construction design.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take the next 5 minutes to look into your crystal ball, Ma. And if you can just give me an idea, you sort of touched on it and the industries that we probably would be getting into. But if we look into your crystal ball in 5 to 10 years, where do you see the Cayman Islands heading in regards to economies and so on, and infrastructure industries?
That's a very, very difficult question. Everybody wants to know, right? I wish I had a crystal ball. I think that the good thing about the Cayman Islands is that there is a healthy dialogue and cooperation between public sector and private sector. And I think that that's one of the reasons why the private sector in the Cayman Islands and the Cayman Islands on the whole has been so prosperous compared to the rest of the Caribbean. And I would want to urge every government from now going forward, any government in the Cayman Islands, to maintain that healthy collaboration with the private sector. And the reason I say that, and to answer your question specifically, Ralph, I think wherever Cayman goes in the next 5 to 10 years or wherever in the future really depends on the needs identified in the private sector that they can then respond to with the support of the public sector. I see the work that Cayman Enterprise City has done as being a real platform to build a knowledge-based society, not just economy, a knowledge-based society where people have high skills and can attract high wages, Caymanians and permanent residents, not just the expat labor force. And I see this transformation taking place over time where you're much more focused on building a knowledge and capacity skills base in your country for your people and of your people. And I think that those sectors that you're going to get into or diversify more into will be much more knowledge-based and technology-based. How that's going to look, I think, like I said, in the financial services sector, I think the regulatory compliance and cybersecurity space will be much bigger and can be much. Cayman can be a leader in that regard. You already have a strong institutional framework to go from with that. I think that with respect to tourism, you need to, and there were other people who wrote about this recently, you need to really think about a more community-based, local, content-based tourism product that has a healthy respect for the environment. Already we see beach erosion happening on 7 Mile Beach. Already we see, I went to Starfish Point the other day and I saw 5 starfish. If I saw 5 starfish, I saw plenty. And I saw more starfish on my stand-up paddle getting to Starfish Point from Rum Point than I saw at Starfish Point. And so we know that the environment is struggling to cope with the level and type of tourism that we have in Cayman. And so I think that we need to switch the model up a little bit and make it less number of people intensive, but more luxury and high-end focused. So that's where I think things should go and might go.
Well, thank you. And I think you are bang on target, person for me personally, because we don't have much land mass here. And as you can see, we have the mountains. It's a very small island, very nice island. But as our population grows and our youth gets educated, they'll need to do some work. But where did it work? And I think that Charlie looked into this years ago and saw that technology is probably where we will have to grow into.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And so, and we know that many of our clients are not in the Cayman Islands. And so therefore, this is ideal. Cayman is actually positioned ideally to have those high-paying jobs, but still work from home. And I think that is, if I'm looking to the crystal ball, based on what you're saying, Marla, and what Charlie has developed, created, is actually moving in that direction. Charlie, can you just give me a few of your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, one of the things that the report showed again this year is that the average salary in the special economic zone is actually above the average salary in outside of the zone. And what that tells us is that the high value jobs, or there are high value jobs and careers in this space, in the knowledge and technology space, and is therefore sectors that we should really invest in. We should really invest in bringing along, encouraging young people and maybe even career changers as well, to invest in training for knowledge and technology focused careers. We have a number of initiatives that we, through our Enterprise Cayman initiative that we have launched, some of them around, supporting the development of an entrepreneurism ecosystem, which is very important, but also focused on career development initiatives. So we have a number of programs, including that we are a Cisco Networking Academy, an Oracle Academy. We offer a coding bootcamp style training for people who are interested in learning to code. And all of these things are obviously, they're building blocks for people who are seeking to move into either new careers or maybe move into these technical, knowledge and technology focused fields for the first time, school leavers and so on.
Excellent. Well, folks, I want to thank you for taking your time out. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and get so much knowledge. I could stay here for another 4 hours and listen to you, Marla and Charlie. But, I'd like to invite you back sometime in the future just to give us an update on how things are progressing, Charlie and Marla. And any final words, Marla?
Final words, you can go find the report on Cayman Enterprise City's website, have a read, and I'm happy to hear your feedback. I'll be grateful for that on how we can look at things differently. If you have different questions about things that you would like to see us cover in the report, I would love to hear your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlie, any final words?
Okay, well, I'll add to that you can find the report on our website, which is our Enterprise Cayman website, which is www.enterprisecayman.ky. And as part of being as transparent as we can be, we'd love to receive any feedback from people that take a look at the report and have comments or questions. And we're of course also open to suggestions. So if somebody sees something that we're not doing that we should be doing, let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
Okay. On that note, I'd like to thank you very much for joining Cayman Conversations and have a great evening.
Thanks, Ralph.
Thank you.
My name is Juliet Gooden. I am the Honorary Consul to Barbados in the Cayman Islands. I have been in Cayman for well over 37 years now, maybe. Nice. And I have been in this role from 1995, I believe. Yes, it's been a while.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Well, it's been a while. Yes. Well, welcome to Cayman Conversations. And I saw you the first time, and I hope to see you again in the future, talking about what you do and how important it is for the relationship between Barbados and the Cayman Islands. As you know, the charter or the regular flights to Barbados have just about to be discontinued, and I wanted to know, what was your, position on any comments you can give on that decision that happened.
Right. Well, let me start by saying the first thing I want to say is that the Minister Kenneth Bryan, we want to thank him for making that a possibility. I know that his vision was to have Cayman Airways as maybe the Caribbean kind of airline, the connecting airline, because right now to travel to Barbados and most parts of the Eastern Caribbean, you have to go somewhere else, you have to overnight, and so there's no direct route, and sometimes it's quite cumbersome and complicated. So kudos to Mr. Bryan for having that vision and thinking of Cayman Airways as being the airline that brings the Caribbean together. So now that has changed, let me say also that I am not involved in any of the conversations about the flight starting, the flight ending, but It is very, very disappointing because it stopped before the year was up. And I believe that it needed that timeline to kind of settle in, people get used to it, maybe an opportunity to tweak how it was done, maybe not twice a week, but maybe once a week, some things like that. But I think that it was a little bit upsetting to quite a few people that the route has now been cancelled.
Okay. Yes, and just to step back a bit from your introduction, I remember attending the press briefing, and we spoke about being a gateway to the Eastern Caribbean and that side of the Caribbean Ocean, and it was a way of linking Cayman with the rest of the Caribbean, and maybe that would generate some activity, not only to and from Barbados, but from to and from the other islands, such as maybe Trinidad, Antigua, Montserrat, where I'm from actually, and so on. So yes, as you did mention, it would take time for something such as that to take root. And so it's just about 1 year since it was announced And so I can understand your reasons for saying that maybe it was a bit premature, and we could have tweaked it. And this is what Cayman Conversations is about, talking about how things can be done, and hopefully in the future, because that challenge that you have with getting to Barbados still exists.
Yes.
And so, can you just tell me how it happens without Cayman Airways normally? What
So
routes do you take?
you would either have to fly to Miami, and back in the day, as I would put it, back in the day, there was an opportunity to get to Miami and get to Barbados in the same day. Now, for the most part, you're getting into Miami just as the other flight to Barbados is about to take off. So the connection is kind of tight.
Yes.
So now you're having to either overnight on the way in, and definitely overnighting on the way back out. So that adds a lot more to your travel time. It reduces your vacation time, because now when you could get to Barbados on the same day and just start your vacation, you're a day later. So that makes it quite more complicated. So that is a challenge. I know during COVID, I did 2 charters to Barbados, and they were pretty good. And what I found with the connection is that we had people who, for example, there was a guy whose mom passed away in St. Lucia. We were able to get him to Barbados as quickly as possible to be there with his family. Another guy, his mom passed away in Grenada. And so the connections were there. We had people whose permits were being canceled by their employers because of the whole COVID situation at that time. And they were from Guyana. We were able to get them to Barbados, and then get them on to Guyana. So you could see how the connection would have worked.
Yeah.
I think that maybe a little more in terms of the promotion of the flight, and more of a selling point.
Yes.
But I think the conversation in the Cayman community may have had some kind of interference. And I'll say that because I see the blogs, I see people making comments. They ask the question, what is there to see in Barbados? What is there to do? I actually entertained someone online, and I said, have you been, when was the last time you were in Barbados? And they said, I've never been. I said, but you're saying there's nothing to see or to do, but you've never been. So sometimes the conversations are just out of thin air, and I guess without any knowledge of what the other islands have to offer. So yes, to your substantive question, it has been tedious, and now we're going back to that, and more expensive as well, more costly.
Yeah. And thank you for clarifying that. And to add to your point, yes, there's a conversation that need to be had. And I would say that, there wasn't, from a media perspective, there wasn't enough communications in the Cayman Islands on what the destination can offer. I remember there was when you had a launch, it was well put together at the Kimpton. And so therefore there was knowledge about it, but on a regular basis, especially with the flights doing every week, there probably could have been there was some advertising by Cayman Airways about it, but I think there's the knowledge of what the products were, or what Barbados has to offer, the beaches, the entertainment, the food, and so on. I think maybe there could have been some reminders during this time to get people turned on or interested in that. I think that's what you're referring to, that it was a bit too premature. And so where do we go from here?
Well, just to your point that you just made, I think part of the problem as well is that I find in conversations in certain circles, it was as if the powers that be, the people who could have advertised this route, were a little bit afraid to use the word Barbados because of the political conversations that are happening. And I found that interesting, because people seem to be literally afraid. People who could have helped promote the flight seem to be afraid to use that word Barbados because of the political conversation. And I'm saying that what the community should be aware of is that you cannot advertise Cayman Airways without saying what destination they're going to. So if you have to mention Barbados, it's not that anyone is promoting Barbados as a place to go. It's promoting Cayman Airways as using the flight if you're going in that direction. So to me, it was kind of a strange feeling and a conversation to have. But again, politics tends to drive whatever the conversation is in the community. So where do we go from here? I hope the conversation is not finished.
Okay.
And I am hoping that there is there's another opportunity for Cayman Airways to be that airline for the Caribbean, because that's how we see it. It can be that Cayman Airways is the airline for most people who have that kind of I guess there's a level of comfort with
Yes.
Cayman Airways. So I'm thinking, here's an opportunity, revisit it, continue the conversation, see how we can tweak it, maybe change
Yes.
what we've done in the past, and learn from this particular experience, and maybe let that be the new thing moving forward.
Yes.
There will always be politics. There will always be the naysayers. Everybody wants to go to wherever they want to go to. But here is an opportunity, I believe, for the airline to connect the Eastern Caribbean. There's going to be a point. Look at COVID, for example, when the supermarkets were thinking, oh my goodness, we might not be able to get products coming in. Where do we go from now?
Yeah.
Throughout the Eastern Caribbean, there are manufacturers, there are people who are producing um, the well, I wouldn't even say the bread because we do the bakery here, but there are people who are producing a lot of the products that we get from the United States. And sometimes the quality to me is even much better because there are a lot of stricter controls and so on. So there might be a point where the Caribbean may be our source of feeding the Cayman community. So those are things that we need to think of when we're planning. But again, I am not in those conversations. I'm just
Yes.
speaking from a perspective of disappointment that it has ended so soon for the connection to the Eastern Caribbean.
And I have 2 points to make. And the first one is, I think that at this stage in the game, we accept that there will be politics in everything, particularly heading up to some elections, silly season, as we said. And I know the minister actually was speaking to that. There's a lot of pressure from the other side, and that's fine because that's how it works. We have to accept that it's a government, and the government will get the opposition and to criticize its projects. And on the other point, I think it's time for us to put that behind us. Let's look at what can be done going forward to try and take advantage of the experience that we have just learned and see how, like you mentioned, how can we benefit from what the Eastern Caribbean, not only Barbados, has to offer, and how Cayman Airways can play a part in that. And I think that you, as a consulate, should have more say and more communication when these decisions are made. And I would encourage you to reach out at some point to see if you can use the connections and your contacts overseas. So let's talk about this topic again. Cayman Conversations, we'll be happy to come in here and point out, like you said, the benefits of having an airline going down to Barbados from the Cayman Islands, even if it's through Miami or through another destination. But I think that there needs to be, yes, a route, like the minister said, going to the east of us.
Absolutely.
We have one going to the north, to the west, to the south. I think is because we are part of the region. And as you said, there are a lot of products that can be purchased in the Eastern Caribbean for a lower price, especially how inflation is really pushing the US right now. And so there is a conversation to be had. And I hope it's not only on Cayman Conversations, but it's in your circles.
Yeah.
Please comment.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And when I spoke with you off air, I spoke about some of the things that were beginning to happen because of the Cayman Airways flight. For example, we just had a boxing team from Barbados here, Cayman versus Barbados, and they came on the direct flight. So there are lots of conversations that started to happen about sporting connections and how easier, because a lot of times you find people who may not have had the US visa, but they're involved in these different sporting activities. We have the volleyball tournament that takes place here. There are a lot of riders, horse riders, who come to do equestrian activities in Cayman. We have footballers. So there's so many different kinds of sports. There was a conversation started about doing some training with the road tennis, which is now the new culture in the Eastern Caribbean and in some parts of Europe. So there were conversations that these things could happen, doing an exchange where we could bring in not just Barbados, but Eastern Caribbean, even Jamaica, and connect. But it would have been such an easier thing to do. And in addition to that, there were conversations taking place within the supermarkets where they were looking at purchasing products from Barbados, and they were actually thinking of having a conversation with Cayman Airways, knowing that the flight was not it was not a cargo flight, but there were times when the flights may not have been full, and then you could have supplemented that with some type of cargo. You still would have made your money. So there's so many different aspects to this, not just, and I keep reminding people that it was not just a flight for Barbadians going to Barbados. Again, you have to look at the Eastern Caribbean. We talk about the United States of America. We have the Caribbean, which could become a United Caribbean. Maybe one day that will happen. But I'm just saying all of that to say that the opportunities that could have come from that Cayman Airways flight are so vast that I'm really hoping that the rethink is in place. I'm hoping to be in Barbados in another week or so. And I'm hoping that while I'm there, I can have some of the conversations that you alluded to and see maybe where the government of Barbados may want to go from there. But we definitely need to have that connection. When COVID came, we were all here thinking, how are we going to see our loved ones? And thankfully for those charter flights, people got to go home, saw family members who, subsequent to them returning here to Cayman, their family members passed on. So they were happy to have that opportunity to spend time with them before that event happened. So there's just a lot more. The conversation cannot be over at this point.
Yes. Well, the model has already been created because Cayman Airways, thank God for them, has been a lifeline to many other Caribbean destinations. Because as you know, we are a multicultural society. We have people from east, west, north, and south. And Cayman Airways actually provided a fare on a number of occasions. I can give examples from my time here. I know that cargo is an essential part of Cayman Airways model for Cuba. We know that a lot of people bring the cargo from Miami to Cayman to Cuba. So we know that cargo is an essential factor that plays into that route. And we can go on where we had Cayman Airways help out air travel to Turks and Caicos from Miami.
Absolutely.
Important things that Cayman Airways have done in the region that they can do here. And like you said, the conversations need to be had at different levels. And in your seat, I think when you travel to Barbados, maybe you might want to have them come on the show because there are so much important things that we did not hear. And I think that the minister would have welcomed it because when he had to make the case, things like what you said would have strengthened his argument. And
I think so.
I think that.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
I think that you should reach out to him, reach out to your government counterparts in Barbados, and see what can be discussed, and then come back with an idea for everyone to sort of, oh, hey, this is what could have been done. Let's see how we can tweak it and make it happen. And I believe in making things happen.
So do I. And I mean, I want to go back to the minister as well. I know that he has taken a lot of heat for his decision, but a person with vision is what I see him as. And again, I'm not political, but I deal with facts and common sense. I see him as having a vision. He travels the Caribbean now, especially in his role as in the
CTO
Tourism
chairman.
Association. Right. And so he sees what is out there. He sees what the opportunities are. And I believe from that vantage point, he was able to come up with this decision to say, you know what, Cayman Airways, I can make Cayman Airways the airline of the Caribbean. He could, take the Cayman Islands name further abroad in a different direction. And so to me, it's vision. It's a vision. Unfortunately, I don't know how the conversations went, that we arrived where we are now. But like you're saying, and I have to agree with you, I'm hoping that the conversations now have a different, take a different route, and that the conversations are broader, and that people look at the opportunities that will come to Cayman. In order to advertise the airline, you have to advertise the destination. So World Cup cricket is taking place in Barbados right now. There are no ads. There have not been any ads in the Cayman Islands to encourage people to get on the Cayman Airways flight to Barbados. That was a lost opportunity for Cayman Airways, in my opinion. So we can't be afraid to say where we're going. We talk about LAX. I would love to see the statistics to see how well that flight is doing, and why we're not having the conversation that says why we're going there. But my point in all of that is that the decisions are made for whatever the reasons are, but without good conversation, good communication, understanding the benefits versus the losses, we might never, we might cut off our nose to spite, to spite our face. So
Yes.
I think we need to have those deep conversations and be more open. And
Yes.
for those people in the community who are saying Barbados has nothing to offer, I would encourage them to stop thinking of the Caribbean as nothing and to recognize that wherever other places in the Caribbean, but for the grace of God, Cayman Islands could be there. But I'm thankful that we have the right kind of governance
Yes.
and that we have the right kind of support that keeps us where we are. But we need to know that there's a point when I believe that the Caribbean is going to be dependent on the Caribbean because we don't have another choice.
Yes.
So let's try to forget about all that negativity and try to come together as a Caribbean people.
And I always like to look at solutions, and I will recommend that you use your office to help promote Island of Barbados. And I remember in sometimes there were events similar to the event that you had. I would recommend that maybe you get your team together to organize a number of those events in the Cayman Islands to promote Barbados. Not only to the Bajans are here, but other people, because and not only for you probably can do it for Barbados, but other areas in the Caribbean need to be promoted some more. And this is where I would have to promote Montserrat because that's where I'm from in Cayman. If I want to promote Montserrat, so therefore individuals from the islands need to sort of take a stand and have events in Cayman from their countries. Like when it's Independence Day, for example, the Philippines have a big event weekend when it's Independence time for Philippines. So therefore, I think Caribbean Jamaicans do have Jamaican independence events, and so I'm not sure if the Barbados have a Barbados independence event in Cayman Islands. But these are the kind of things that educate our people who live here about what happens in other countries and make them want to go there. So I think it's a task for everyone to come together, revisit this whole idea of using the airline Cayman Airways to visit destinations in the Eastern Caribbean, and Barbados will be the hub.
Yeah, and that is a very good point in terms of I guess celebrating your different countries, because then that's how people learn that, hey, even though we're all Caribbean islands, we have some things that are exactly the same. We have a lot of things that are different, and we have different. Otherwise, there will be no point in coming to visit Cayman either, because Cayman is not exactly like somewhere else. So Cayman has its uniqueness that people come and will enjoy the same way that Barbados, Trinidad, and all the others have their uniqueness. So where Cayman is a flat island with no mountains, we go and we experience the mountains in another country. And so, but we have a Barbados Association, which has been around since 1991. And what we have done with that association is that we don't have events that are Barbadian only. All of our events are open to the public, and Caymanians have actually become members of that association.
Okay.
So we do lots of different things. We have so many different activities. We even do simple things like having a bus excursion to give you the Caribbean experience of getting on a bus and going all the way to East End and having a picnic on the beach. But in doing that, while we're sharing our Barbadian culture, we're using the Caymanian culture and incorporating the two. So it's not that we're separating ourselves. We are immersed in the community. We are part of the community. Apart from social events, we do a lot of fundraising for Caymanians in the Caymanian community. We were one of the first to donate to the Cayman Islands a dollar figure of over $10,000 after Hurricane Ivan. And the Barbados government added to that to complement what we were donating as a community. We have donated to the senior citizens' homes. We buy hospital beds. And we contribute to the Pines every year. We do events at the Pines, we provide supplies. So we do a whole lot of community stuff because we recognize we are blessed and honored to be in the Cayman Islands. And so we are not just taking from the Cayman Islands, we're giving back every single day. A lot of our a lot of our community are involved in the Lions Club or the Rotary Club. So we give back in so many different ways.
Yes.
So I I want us as a community to stop thinking of the Caribbean as useless or not as exciting as North America, and recognize that we have such versatility. We have so many different activities with children, adults, you name it. And it can be anything from quietness to the noise, because you know, Barbados and Trinidad with all the music and the dancing and so on. So there's something for everyone when you go through the Caribbean. And I had a Caymanian reporter say to me, I was in Barbados. I didn't have enough time to do everything that there is to do in Barbados, and I have to go back. So I'm saying that to say there's lots to do.
Yeah.
There's history, culture, you name it. And so back to the Cayman Airways flight. During the time of COVID, we have Caymanians who own businesses in Barbados utilizing those flights to make sure they get supplies to their staff in Barbados. So if Mr. Brian is listening, the conversation has to continue, Mr. Brian. We can't leave it here. And so you need to get your you need to get everybody on board to kind of understand the benefits to Cayman. And when we're promoting this flight, the Barbadians, I can tell you, promote Cayman on the other end because we want people to come to Cayman as well. So it is a two-way street.
Yeah. And while you're speaking there, talking about these great ideas and how we can, the prime minister of your country has one of the loudest microphones in the world. So here we are talking about how to get information to our people. And I will office and ask you to come and make a conversation, have a presentation to Cayman. I actually thought that when the minister was launching the flight that she would have been the person that was going to greet everyone. So I think that maybe she can get a moment out of her busy schedule to just come and greet the people of Cayman Islands, or even talk to them and say, hey, here's a place to go. I guarantee you she'll get everyone's ears. And you know who I'm talking about.
Yes. And I have a lot of Caymanians who approach me on a regular basis. We're having this event. Do you think the Prime Minister of Barbados will come? Listen, we have been trying to get her. So hopefully she's hearing you, not hearing you as well. We have been trying to get the Prime Minister to do just that, to come and not only support the flight, but Barbadians here would like to see and hear from her as well.
Yes.
Her schedule, from what I'm told, is already packed for the next year or so. But we have made the offer that if you're going to be in Florida, there's a Barbados Embassy consulate. If you have to be in Florida, pop over to the Cayman Islands. We will take care of your stay in Cayman, and then you can pop back on over to Florida. So hopefully we will convince her this year to make Cayman one of her stops on the way. And if not, you can always get her on your show, Ralph. We'll work on that.
Exactly. Thank God for technology. It takes about 20 minutes of her time. I'm available, and to have her here, just speaking to our people, and people listen to the Cayman Conversations. I'll be happy. So just give her an invitation on my behalf, and we'll be happy to have her here. We'll make anything to make it comfortable, and I'm sure this will. And she can speak for the whole Caribbean, because I've heard her speak about how Cuba was treated and so on, and she can speak to that connection that we're trying to make with the Eastern Caribbean, the Cayman Islands, and I think that everyone will listen to her, and that flight needs to be revisited, and I think this is what probably should have happened before, and it would make a big difference into how we go forward. And that's what we're here to do. Look at past experiences and see how we can talk together, you and I and other people involved, to make it happen. And I think this is what needs to be brought into this one at this time.
Well, thank you for that. I will do my best and work on the Prime Minister on your behalf.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Well, and in our final notes, anything you'd like to add before we say goodbye?
Yes. We've spoken about the flight in general, but I also want to talk about the Barbadian connection to Cayman. We've had Barbadians in Cayman from way back when. If you know Gorin Avenue is actually named after one of the first Barbadians who came to Cayman. And he married a lady from Central Georgetown, Scranton. And
Wow.
so we have been here. And he was a vestryman. He served in the Cayman Islands Parliament. Back in the days, it wasn't called a parliament, but he served as a vestryman in Cayman. He was a teacher. He taught people like the Merrins and the Miss Lassie. Those were his students. So you can see the Barbadian connection to Cayman goes way back, and it's pretty deep. So I'm just encouraging Caymanians to embrace the Barbadian culture, embrace the Barbadians in your population, because one of the things that we don't do is that we don't demean or diminish from the Caymanian culture. We embrace it and we supplement it and we share.
Yeah.
So it's that's the way to live and to move forward. And I'm looking forward to it.
And I think the Caribbean has a strong tie to to Barbados, not only in Cayman, but my great grandfather was a Bajan. Actually, he was a deacon in the church, and so a
Oh,
lot of yes. And what took place was, they sent a lot of the deacons and to the Caribbean to spread the gospel, and so many of these Caribbean islands benefited from that. Barbados, that's where the headquarters of Barclays Bank was, and so
right.
therefore that's how
Oh,
Montserrat. And the first bank in the Cayman Islands was Barclays Bank. And the
yeah,
headquarters was in Barbados. And so when you go back, there's a lot of ties from Barbados to the rest of the region. It
yeah,
was like the major hub. I remember when Cable and Wireless was there. And so
absolutely.
therefore, there's a huge connection Barbados to not only the Eastern Caribbean, but the Caribbean on a whole. And so Barbados was the number one banking center before it became it.
Oh,
And so
right.
when we think of those things, we realize that
Absolutely.
Barbados played an important part. And it's because of where Barbados is located. It's the most eastern island to Europe, to the UK.
Right. Yes, yes,
So when the ships came over that side of the world, they hit Barbados first.
that's
And
it.
so, and some of the same challenges that Barbados have, we have too. Barbados had this famous song, Jack and the Beach. Now everybody in the region, even Cayman Islands and Turks and so on, and the
Yeah,
Dominican Republic are fighting for the beach rights.
absolutely. Yes.
So we are
Yeah,
in the same boat, as we said.
yeah.
And
And
for
we can
those
learn from each other.
folks,
Yes.
who didn't know who the Prime Minister of Barbados was, it's Honorable Mia Motley. And that's what we were talking about earlier. And
Yeah.
so, I think Barbados do have a strong pull. And for those who are not aware of what Barbados has to offer, it has a lot. I travel around the region very often these days because there's so much in the islands that are close to us. I can jump on a plane and go to Asia or Europe, but if you ever get a chance to go to Cuba, who is just 45 minutes away,
Hmm. Yeah.
Dominican Republic, who is 1 hour away, Jamaica, um,
Yes.
in Honduras, and we find that some of our ancestors of the Cayman Islands actually travel to those locations. They have so much to offer. So I encourage people to go to the region around us and see.
Explore the Caribbean. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I think this is what we were trying to do with Cayman Airways.
Yeah.
And I think that journey should not stop. Well, I want to thank you very much, Juliet, for spending this time with me. I think we have a great conversation.
Thank
And,
you.
and I look forward to having another one. And maybe this time we could have another special guest on this show with you. And
Absolutely. We will be back. And I thank you for the opportunity, and I wish you every success, continued success with your show.
thank you very much. Cayman Conversations is a production of the Caymanian Times newspaper. We invite you to join us next Sunday for 2 more great interviews as we focus on the passing of Hurricane Beryl through the Caribbean Sea. Have a great evening, and now please listen to the important hurricane preparedness message from Her Excellency Governor Jane Owen and Premier Honorable Julian O'Connor Connolly, which was recorded at the beginning of the hurricane season.
Hello, everyone. Once again, the Atlantic hurricane season is upon us. This means that, as happens every year between June the 1st to November the 30th, the islands in our region are at increased risk of storms and hurricanes. Forecasters have warned us to brace for a very active season, with 23 named storms, 11 expected to become hurricanes, and 5 that could reach major hurricane status. As you all know very well, the best way to be ready for a potential storm or hurricane is for us to prepare both individually and collectively. So now is the time for us to stock up on emergency supplies and to make a plan for our homes, families and businesses. We should all consider carefully our emergency plans and how they relate to sheltering in advance of a hurricane approaching. As you know, the Cayman Islands are low-lying, and so it's important to bear in mind that storm surge is not just a coastal threat. Throughout the season, we encourage you to stay tuned to our official government channels, www.gov.ky Hazard Management's Cayman Islands Government, at www.caymanprepared.ky, and our Facebook page, and Radio Cayman. They all provide accurate information and timely updates when our islands are threatened by a storm. And if you've not already done so, please do download the free National Emergency System, NEMS, mobile app. This allows hazard management to send emergency alerts straight to you via email, SMS text, or both. You can log on to ens.gov.ky today. And finally, during the approaching hurricane season, let us look out for our elderly and our vulnerable neighbours. Ensure that our seniors have adequate food and hurricane supplies. Designate a family member or friend to check on their well-being. Importantly, we can also assist our seniors or those less able to use smartphones, helping them to register with NEMS in order to receive important alerts and updates. We will get through the hurricane season best if we all work together. So let us be prepared.
First, let me start by thanking our Heavenly Father for His continued grace and mercy on our islands as we prepare for the start of the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season, which has been predicted to be a near record active season. While our islands have been spared serious catastrophe in the past few years, we are reminded this year, on this, the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Ivan, of the devastating impact of hurricane that they can have on our islands. These memories remind us that as a nation vulnerable to climate challenges and unpredictable disasters, we assume collective responsibility for our safety. Our ability to withstand the onslaught of a hurricane as a nation is related to the responsibility taken by every single person, every family, every business, and every community. I want to therefore implore everyone across our islands to start taking necessary precautions and preparations to ensure the safety and security of yourselves, your families, and properties. The government, through the National Weather Service and Hazard Management, is actively working to strengthen our preparedness, response, and recovery mechanisms to ensure swift and effective action in time of crisis. Just last week, I announced that our Doppler radar system is now fully operational and resumed active service. This reflects our commitment to ensuring the safety and preparedness during the hurricane season. And to further strengthen our capacity, the HMCI will expand the number of spaces available at our emergency shelters by adding over 2,500 spaces at the new John Gray High School and a further 500 at the Bordentown Church of God. In addition, they will also have necessary mental health support for persons relocated at the said shelters. I would like to thank the many shelter volunteers who work assiduously to ensure that these essential facilities are safe spaces during times of emergencies.
In government, Premier and I are working together along with our uniformed services, hazard management and the UK, including the reassuring presence of the Royal Navy ship in the region, so that we are ready and prepared to respond as needed.
There is no way to predict what this hurricane season may bring, but we do know that together we can be ready. Let us then all pray that Almighty God will continue to stretch His protective hands over our beloved nation, the Cayman Islands. May God bless you. May God bless our islands.